To be honest, I don't know how long it had been wandering around the hole. In reality, the events around here are missing from my memory. I couldn't distinguish between the after image and reality. According to what I heard later, after it disappeared, the three of us were all in a daze inside the hole. It seems that it was making strange noises like a cow as it moved away. It seems that only B and I actually saw it. A said he couldn't see it at all. Overwhelmed by intense tension and fear, B was extremely silent. Light was coming in through the gaps in the eaves, and we could hear the chirping of birds. Even though we knew the night had passed, we still couldn't lift our faces, and just sat there. Our legs were practically glued to the floor with fear. At that moment we heard footsteps approaching from a distance. Thinking it might be coming back, the three of us huddled together in the center of the hole, on high alert. The footsteps came closer and closer, and when they reached very close, they turned around to the back of the hole and stopped in front of the entrance. Holding our breath, we heard a rattling sound, and with a high-pitched squeak the door creaked open. Standing there was a priest. When the priest saw us, he had a look like he was about to cry for a moment, and he said, "You've done well." Finally, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, and with relief, I slumped, crying despite my age. The priest entered the hole, despite his state, covered in our sweat and urine, and embraced each of us. Afterwards, the men and the elderly person who were with the priest rushed to the hole. With their support, we made our way to the house within the shrine grounds where we met for the first time the day before. On our way to that house, we passed by the side of the main hole, and from there we heard an incredible scream. Yeah! It was immediately apparent that the scream voice was the landlady's. Although we had been curious about it, we were exhausted and just wanted to rest at home, so we passed by. As soon as we entered the house, a woman in her 20s who had shown us around the house when we first arrived here the day before came out and looked at us with a displeased expression, as if she had seen something dirty. Please go get into the bath right away." Apparently, the stench of our urine and sweat was overpowering. They prepared a bath for us, and afterwards, we lay down on the futon mattresses that had been prepared and slept like a log. For some reason, I had an instinct that I was safe here, so I slept completely defenseless. After waking up, we were informed of the truth by the priest. We came to know the eerie reality brought about by the true fear of humans and the strength of belief. Awakening to the voice of the priest, the three of us knelt in front of him. "Everyone, you did really well yesterday. We were able to successfully perform the exorcism. There is something I need to show you, and I must tell you everything," the priest said and stood up. Leaving the house, the priest led us toward the main hall. Upon arriving at the main hall, we followed the priest through a side entrance, which was not much different from the room we had been in earlier. The priest returned with a small wooden box from the back of the main hall. Sitting in front of us, he said, "I'll show you the beginning of this instant," and opened the box. Inside, there were small dried black objects wrapped in cotton, resembling shriveled mushrooms. Looking closely, I couldn't quite make out what they were. "This is the umbilical cord. I assume you all have been shown this by your parents. Many people cherish such things and keep them carefully. This umbilical cord too was stored with great care. There are various beliefs associated with the umbilical cord, and in the past many believed in them. People in the past held such beliefs in high regard. Nowadays, they are only talked about as superstitions. Having a child hold on to their umbilical cord signifies protecting the child, and the interpretation varies by region. For example, there's a belief that if a child who has had a near-death experience due to severe illness consumes a decoction made from the umbilical cord, their life will be saved, or that giving a child their umbilical cord will protect them from a life-threatening situation. allow me to share a local folktale. This story is related to the incident this time. Due to the local circumstances, many people in this area have made a living as fishermen for a long time. When a child is born to a fisherman's family, they start going to the sea with the parents from the time they begin to understand things. Fishing is fraught with danger, and I can imagine the feelings of mothers who anxiously await their children's return. It must have been deeply painful. Eventually, the mothers in the village start giving their children their umbilical cord as amulets, hoping they would protect them from the dangers of the sea, and that their lost children would find their way back home. When the still small children went out to fish, they often encountered rough weather, and if they encountered a storm, the boat would sway violently, sometimes tossing them into the sea, where they would be carried away by the waves. Children who went out to fish and went missing in the sea were considered to have died after several days. Mothers who suddenly lost their children, unable to accept the reality, would wait for their return for days on end. And so, at some point, it is said that the umbilical cord given to the child came to symbolize a lifeline bearing the meaning, just as the child and I were connected in life, may the child be able to return to me no matter where they are. However, in reality, there were no cases of children who were given their umbilical cord and then went missing returning safely. However, one day, a mother appeared, shedding tears of joy and exclaiming, "My child has returned." Upon hearing this, those around her were skeptical of the story, and even began to pity her, thinking she might have gone mad. After all, it had been 3 years since the mother lost her child at sea. Some even asked her to show them the child. The mother reportedly told them, "Please wait a little longer. I will show you soon." The villagers felt uneasy about the fact that if she truly had her child, there was no reason she couldn't show them right away. However, having seen the mother grieving for her lost child all this day, they couldn't bring themselves to push her too hard and ended up backing down. Yet the next day, another mother appeared, expressing the same joy with the fact that her child returned, and explaining that she couldn't show her child just yet. The villagers began to feel perplexed, so the villagers decided to talk to this mother's husband to ascertain the truth of the matter. The husband reportedly said, "I know nothing about such story." Contrary to the mother's joy, the father was completely unaware of the situation. When the villagers attempted to further investigate, he finally became angry and said, "Don't meddle in other people's affairs." So the villagers ended up giving up asking him to explain. After a few more days, a villager claimed to have seen the first mother walking by the seaside with her child last night. It was dark, so they couldn't see very well, but seeing her holding hands with the child next to her and talking to them, she appeared genuinely happy. Upon hearing this, all the villagers felt the need to apologize for the previous doubts and genuinely celebrate the return of the children. They decided to visit the mother's house. When they arrived, the mother emerged from inside with a beaming smile. The villagers explained the reason for their visit that day, and some even lowered their heads. The mother then said, "Please don't worry about it. I'm really happy just having my child back," as she gently pulled her child's hand, who had been hiding behind the door, and showed them in front of everyone. At that moment, the villagers frozen on the spot. The child's skin was bluish-purple hue all over. Their body had swollen to an unimaginable size, and the swollen eyelids revealed white pupil, where the barely visible irises pointed in different directions. As they spoke in response to the mother, foam-like substance emanated from their mouth. It was strangely reminiscent of a crow's cawing. Seeing the mother gently smiling at the child, emitting strange sounds, and affectionately stroking the child's head with thinning hair, the villagers were filled with terror and ended up fleeing from the place. Upon hearing this, the village chief deemed it beyond his capability to handle, and decided to lead everyone to a certain priest for advice. This priest happened to be an ancestor of mine. Consulting with the priest, realizing the gravity of the situation, They immediately headed to the mother's house. Upon seeing the child being led by the mother's side, the priest took the mother out of the house and brought her back to the shrine. Throughout this, the child continued to follow the priest and the mother, emitting those strange sounds. The love of a mother for a child is strong. The mother, resisting the priest's attempts to restrain her, managed to break free and run out of the shrine. Later, a few villagers along with their attendants went to the mother's house, but neither the mother nor the child were there. Instead, the house was covered in tasmalids with no way to know where they came from, and the room was filled with the stench of rotting food. The villagers concluded that the mother, in her grief over losing her child, had performed some kind of ritual here, and that was the result. Realizing this, the villagers rallied together to search for the mother's whereabouts. The priest immediately took his attendants and headed to the house of the other mother, but by then it was already too late. They were the father terrified of the incomprehensible being, and the mother calling out her child's name while being horrified. The priest, seeing this, tried to approach the purple zombie while chanting sutras. But the mother, protecting her child, turned her eyes wide and menacingly vocalized her threats, according to the report. The villagers were terrified and couldn't get close. However, the priest and his attendants approached the mother and this zombie without hesitation. They subdued the agitated mother and brought her back to the shrine. While holding the struggling mother, they chanted sutras and sprinkled salt along the way, slowly advancing with the purple zombie following from behind. Reaching the shrine, the priest took the mother to a small hut called the hole upon her and locked her inside. Next, they wrapped Shimenawa, a sacred rope, around the hole, and the priest sat around it, chanting sutras. The moans of the mother could be heard from inside. To ensure the childlike creature would notice, they all raised their voices while chanting. While the priest desperately chanted sutras, the childlike creature finally appeared. It was searching for its parents and began circling around the hole. In a state of uncertainty about what criteria the childlike creature was using to search for its parents, and whether the sutras were fulfilling the purpose, the priest chanted sutras desperately. The childlike creature, the purple zombie, which had been circling around the hole, gradually found it difficult to walk and began to move on all fours. Later, it bent its limbs greatly and crawled on the ground like a spider. It was as if we were witnessing human degeneration. Afterward, it emitted some moans, and then its limbs were lost, and it lay there in the form of a caterpillar. As the dawn broke, the creature shrank smaller, and ultimately all that remained was the umbilical cord. This morning, the umbilical cord was found on the top of a rock deep in the hole. We don't really know why you were haunted by that. In this shrine, there are records left by generations of priests, but there is no record such an occurrence happening to anyone other than a mother. Above all, the ritual performed by the mother remains shrouded in mystery. When the priests opened the hole and checked the inside, they found a mother who was completely exhausted and collapsed. She must have been shouting all night, desperately searching for her child. They immediately brought the mother outside and provided her with the first aid. However, by the time she woke up, the mother had completely lost her sanity. It is still unclear whether this was due to the grief of losing her child twice, or if there was something malevolent at play. In the end, we couldn't confront the mother about the ritual. As for the other mother who the villagers were searching for, the exhausted priest received news for her discovery. Her body had washed up on the nearby shore, turned into a corpse. She had been torn apart all over her body, yet her face seemed incredibly content. We don't know what happened, but in the priest's records, it was written the last moments of a mother eaten by her child were marked by a complete smile. The house where the mother body was found was decided by the villagers to be demolished through discussion. And during the process, a note written by the mother was discovered from inside. October 1st, created an altar. October 10th, no changes. November 1st, my baby returned. November 11th, my baby is still in a state where movement is difficult. November 21st, my baby grows limbs. December 1st, my baby starts crawling. December 20th, my baby moves around on all fours. January 5th, my baby speaks. February 21st, my baby stands. It seems that this growth record was densely filled with mother's emotions. By the way, the other mothers had apparently built an altar in the attic, and her father was completely unaware of its existence. I cannot claim to understand everything, but when I'm comparing the growth records of the mother with the past records, it appears that the creature regressed, retracing its own growth process. Following this, in records, there are very rare descriptions of similar events. However, in all of them, it is not explicitly stated how the mothers came to know about this ritual. This implies that all the mothers either lost their lives or became unable to communicate, which is a tragic outcome. This phenomenon is unprecedented, and I myself am very perplexed. Why, as someone other than a mother, did you encounter this creature? The growth of a child is something only a mother can understand, and it should be impossible for anyone else living together to confirm it. This baffles me.